Welcome into a Week 7 breakdown of the Green Bay Packers against the Arizona Cardinals. 27-23 win for Green Bay. This was a tough game for both sides on the ground, and the limited possessions really made it tough and tightly contested throughout this game. So let's dive into the film and see what happened. First play that I want to look at is just a double snag concept by the Cardinals. You've got a spot and a corner on both sides. And essentially, this is just going to be a undisguised Tampa 2 by the defense. So you're going to get a middle read player and two high safeties, a flat, and then two hook defenders in the middle. And this is just Brissett finding the soft spot in the zone, good timing, and a very good catch there by Wilson. But I want to focus on Parsons up here at the front. All right, he is going to be here. He goes into a double team and still gets pressure on the quarterback. All right, this is a tight pocket for Brissett. And Micah Parsons was a problem for the Cardinals all night. And this is just kind of the start of that. Then early on in the game, the outside runs were a bit of an issue. Here you've got a double pull from the guard and the center. And because of the alignment of McDuffie, this is going to make that down block a lot easier to get those pullers out front. And we're going to see a pretty explosive run. But it was really only this first drive that the Cardinals were getting these long runs. And after that, it's going to get shut down. But we can see from the end zone angle here, you've got that double puller from the guard and the center. Backside guard is going to take 96, and then we're going to get a cutoff block on 56. So the front side, they just have to down block and get these guys out, and then the pullers will clean things up, and we'll see that happen here. So you get the center, gets on Quay, Cooper, unblocked, but in the back of Quay, so that essentially blocks two players, and then you get Hobbs kicked out by an offensive lineman, and then it's going to be one-on-one with Williams to make a play. Next play, I want to focus on Williams up here at the top. This is just really good recognition. Cardinals are obviously going to have a screen that gets called here. You got a block here. You got three linemen. This is not a good situation for the Packers if all of these blocks happen. All right, you got one runoff here where he's probably not necessarily going to be making a block on Nixon. You've got a block here, and you got 2-on-2 up here. So someone's got to make a play, and Williams is going to come downhill and use that agility, that side-to-side movement, to swipe by, make a nice tackle there for a stop. I know people are frustrated with the Packers playing a lot of zone, but here they're going to go man in the red area, almost, right? 23-yard line, almost in the red zone. But here you're going to get man on all of these defenders, right? So you've got one high safety, and they're going to run a mesh, which is perfectly going to work against man. So you can see the extension by McBride here on Bullard. So he's going to just get that extension, create separation, and then get a nice ball. And that would have been a third down stop. We can see the chains here, right? That would have been a third down stop if not for the blow to the head by Quay Walker, right? Obviously, QB down here, not allowed to hit the QB in the head at all. He gets two hands in his face, and that's going to extend that drive a little bit. But luckily, they don't get hurt too much because it ends up being a field goal in this situation. And part of the reason it ends up becoming a field goal is because of the pressure that Micah Parsons is going to get off the left edge here. All right, so gets around number 70 and wraps up Brissett for his first sack of the game. 1 of 3 in this game, and we'll watch it from the end zone angle as well. So you can see, got the snap. Tries to go outside at first. Then he's got the fake counter move. He switches his head to the inside as if he's going to try to rip back inside, but he goes outside instead, and he's just going to beat Paris Johnson there for a sack. And here's the third down call that I really didn't like. You've got an empty set. You're going to motion the back in. I know it's third and short. You're just going to run this little inside zone. And at the start, it looks advantageous because you were going to be running inside zone to the right. You would get your double team here, your combo, and then walk up to the one middle linebacker. But after they bring the running back in, they're going to have a quick adjustment, and we're going to take a look at that. So they bring the back in, Then you're going to push, right? And then on the snap, Morgan is probably expecting a little bit of combo here to help on that new 3-tech. And instead, he gets his hands on him, but he doesn't actually get in front, right? Elton Jenkins doesn't get his shoulder on him to get a true combo. And instead, Morgan gets pushed back. And then you also have Banks, who's probably not ready in the run game, right? Doesn't fire off, doesn't stay low, just gets out leveraged by Calais Campbell. And that's a stop on 3rd down. Luckily, that stop doesn't affect the drive. They go for it. They get a quick out to Golden for the 1st down, but then you get a near interception thrown by Jordan Love here. He is just expecting, he's anticipating that, hey, we've got this deep cross. That safety in the middle is going to attach because they've got a guy playing underneath, and that safety does not attach and instead waits on this dig, which the Packers love doing, right? So that safety is very, very patient, and he can see that throw where he's setting up is not going to the tight end, right? So he's already driving down on this dig route that's coming over the middle of the field. And if he gets there a split second earlier, that is probably going to be an interception going the other way for the Cardinals. Here we go again. Another 3rd down that I don't really like on this drive. It's going to be another run call. And we're going to mess up over here on the edge. It's supposed to be a pin pull call, right? Pin the end, pull out, and you're going to get 2 lead blockers. But instead, Rasheed Walker, I'm assuming, is who's going to mess up on this, because he doesn't get around. All right, he's supposed to pull, so is Jenkins. And instead, you get 2 guys on 1, and nobody's kicking out where you're meant to. All right, and we're going to see an example of this run by the Cardinals a lot better. But you can see the confusion up front. All right, Kraft is just supposed to push him inside, pin him. Then you're supposed to get a pull by Walker, who's supposed to go to the outside and clear that first defender, right? And then you would have Jenkins, who's going to come around and clear the next threat. But instead, that gets all clogged up by one player. No one can get to their guy. And instead of having 2-on-2 out here with your offensive lineman, right, you now have everyone that's supposed to be out there backed up. So pin pull concept would have been a good call if it had been executed properly. And LaFleur was a little bit more aggressive this game. Here we've got a 4th down early in the game, and he's just going to take his shot on Doubs with a deep post. He's got a safety with outside leverage. He's going to eat that up and then run that post, and he is going to beat him. It's just a matter of the throw being a little bit too long. You can see 34 trying to keep up, and that is just a hair too long for Doubs. I would have liked if this was a little bit more flat, right? He's leading him upfield, but there's so much grass out here that if you just lead him on an angle, you don't even have to worry about this DB catching up behind him. But instead, it leads him too far up the middle of the field. And unfortunately, what was a good call goes incomplete. And here we're going to see that pin pull executed by the Cardinals. It seemed like they were copycatting a lot of what the Packers were doing. There are a few times in this game where Packers called the concept, and then the very next drive for the Cardinals, they called the same exact concept. So here you've got that pin and pull. You can see Brooks just gets pinned all the way on the inside, and you get an explosive run. So they were kind of killing us on the outside. And so you can see they bluff here to kick out. All right, so he's just going to go to the next. They're going to pin him down, and you're going to have 2 pullers. One that's going to be responsible for kicking out Gary, and then another that's going to be responsible for leading. So we see that here. There you've got the kick out. You've got him getting to the level 2 defender. You've got the receiver kicking out the corner. There's the puller taking the most dangerous man, the first threat. And then you've got a one-on-one with the safety. And that's a pretty explosive run for the Cardinals. This next play could have been a big turning point. You're just going to get a slant, a one-on-one here. And we can just see the outside leverage. He's 10 yards deep. He's got outside of the receiver, right? And so he's just going to take advantage of that slant. And Nixon does a very good job of breaking this up. But if he is a second slower and lets Harrison get a third step down, that's going to be a fumble that the Packers can recover. So unfortunately, this is an incomplete pass. Only gets 2 steps down, doesn't get the third. So what could have been a huge turnover early in this game to swing the momentum ends up just being an incomplete pass. And here we are a little bit later. We have a third down, and I'm not a fan of this kind of concept, and I'll talk about it again a little bit later. But here you're going to motion down into a bunch. They're going to have to box this essentially where they play first outside. All right, so you've got a little spot route here, which they're trying to attract the attention of this corner. And then you've got a corner going off the top, but you've got 2 guys over the top. So even though you've got this corner that's coming, this deep dig, and you've got the spot, right, that's going to be short of the sticks, because keep in mind the sticks are up here, right? The Arizona defense only has to focus on these receivers. You've got 4 defenders for 3 receivers. So that concept is not a winning concept. And then on the backside, you've got your little escort screen where you swing out a guy who is really not a pass catcher, but he is just there to block for the outlet. So he's got to have, you've got 2-on-2, so he's going to get one of those, but one guy's going to come free to make a tackle on the screen. And I really am not a big fan because, yes, it works from time to time as an outlet, but you're cutting down who the defense needs to cover. Because even if this guy keeps crossing, you've got a 5th defender that can just step down and make a play. All right, so you essentially have, 5 defenders on 3 receivers, and then you've got this little outlet concept that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, but you're not forcing the defense to stretch the entire field, near the sticks. So you're not pressuring them where you should. And this one is just going to end up falling incomplete. Not a lot of room for Love in the pocket. And if that's a little bit more flat towards the sideline, then there's a chance. But again, just throws it a little too high, and Wicks is not able to get there. We're just going to focus on Hobbs here. Not too much that I want to talk about in terms of his technique, but he just gets his hips open way too early. All right. Marvin Harrison just pushing vertical, and then he's going to give that head nod inside with the shoulders pointed, and that's just going to be enough for Hobbs to bite on it, and it ends up being this out. All right, so deep out, easy completion for the Cardinals. Hobbs just put on an island there against Marvin Harrison Jr., and that route running is going to be perfect. Brissett was doing a good job with his decision making. He's isolating these one-on-one matchups, and here obviously we got Edrin Cooper in coverage against Trey McBride, who is a very good tight end. And if that ball, I know this was mentioned on the broadcast, if that ball is put out in front instead of up and away, that is a walk-in touchdown for the Cardinals. So able to get a nice pass breakup based on where the ball was, right? Plays it quite well, knocks the hands out of the way, and they're able to stop the Cardinals for just a field goal on this possession. And here it is again. This is what I was talking about earlier. You're going to get 2 guys at the bottom of the screen doing this little escort screen as an outlet. All right, so you're just going to have someone sit out here for a screen, and then you're going to have a 3-man concept out in the field, and we're just going to see what happens. All right, so you got Wicks and Brooks down here doing that escort screen. We look at the top of the screen. Instead of Tucker Kraft doing a chip, you've got Romeo Doubs given a chip, which is not too bad. But again, that pushes this defender too far in, right? So Tom attaches to him, and then you're going to get a guy that gets to the outside. But now, because of that chip, if we're looking at the defense, they've got 2 receivers that they really need to account for. They have a third that's going to check down into the flat. So you've got 1-2 for the flat. You've got 2 high defenders. So if either one breaks vertical, right, they're going to be accounted for. And then you've got another guy to slide underneath the hook zone. So again, you've got 2 or 3 guys going against 4 or 5 defenders out deep beyond the sticks. And again, this is a third down, but there's just nowhere to go for Jordan Love, right? He's got this outlet screen, but if he throws that, Wicks has already lost this block, and there's potentially pass interference, right? Because that ball is in the air and he's interfering with the defender that's trying to get to the ball, right? So, yes, it works from time to time, but this is not a concept that he should be consistently going back to. And instead, you just have Rasheed Walker losing that rep, and you get a sack on third down, forced to punt. All right, next, outside zones are basically going to stop a little bit in the middle part of this game, and you get Parsons, who's a big reason for that. So Parsons, he's going to set the edge. He's going to prevent this from getting to the outside, and then you've got good flow from the linebacker coming downhill, able to make a play. Edgerrin Cooper, you've got a hold there, and I also think this was a miscommunication, right? I don't think that Williams is meant to be going this direction, right? Because you've got the flow from these three, and then Hernandez should be just taking a half here to combo, and Williams should be getting upfield. But instead, he kind of goes to the left first and then realizes, wait, I need to be going right. And instead, you get a holding call because McBride is one-on-one with Micah Parsons, one of the best defenders in the league. And then good flow by Cooper. I know I said this a ton last year, but one of Quay Walker's strengths is blitzing the quarterback. And I don't know why we don't do it more often. They did it a ton in this game, but here he is, one-on-one with the running back, and he's just going to obliterate the running back and get straight to the quarterback. So here we are again from the end zone angle. He's late. All right, they're sliding towards the mic in this situation. All right, so you got a half slide here. So really, they're trying to play big on big on the backside. So he's going to be man here. He's going to be man. And then they've got a half slide, and then the running back is supposed to take any linebacker that comes in. All right. But you've got Gary who drops out. So realistically, 63 should be taking that. But that's causing issues up front, right? So by having this edge rusher out wide, they're assuming that now with this half slide to the right, that they're going to be responsible for this guy out here as well, right? So their pass protection calls get messed up. Gary drops out, and then you've got a running back one-on-one against Quay Walker. So here you are on a 3rd and 23. They've got to get to the sticks. You're going to get an offsides on the top of the screen. So you're going to get a guy who jumps. But we just need more awareness of the sticks as well, right? This is a free play, so of course Brissett's going to take a shot. But I know Nixon is here at the sticks, but there's nobody threatening you down here. You've got a check down, but by the time that ball gets to that check down, if you take a little bit more depth, right, with number 17 who's pushing you vertical, right, you're still going to make a play before the sticks, right? They've got to run essentially 20 yards to get to the sticks. You've got to run 10, and I think you can probably get there in time. You're fast enough. But instead, in this Tampa 2 hole, right, Nixon doesn't get enough depth. And then because 17 does a good job of pushing vertical and staying close to the sideline, that's just a nice catch to move the sticks. So that sack by Quay Walker just gets nullified. And here, Nixon is going to get beat. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, that was Edgerrin Cooper who gets beat. I mean, we'll just watch the play and then go over the concept. And you can see Nixon puts his hands on a guy for no reason. There's no reason to chuck him here, and that's also illegal contact anyways because it's well beyond 5 yards. But they're playing a simple quarters type defense, right? You've got the shell, you've got the leverage, so you're just going to get a corner, a post on both sides, right? So we're going to see that on both sides. Let's pay attention to the top of the screen and how they pass it off. So at the top, you've got Hobbs that passes off, right? He's going to be at the goal line. He passes off, and he's taking that corner instead, right? On the other side, we'll go back. That corner is a little bit shorter, but because that contact, he's going to stick the contact and drive a little bit with this receiver, that he's now got a speed turn, and that's going to be a little bit too late, right? So I think if Brissett is on time for both of these, right, this is probably the easier one because that corner has his back turned and he's out of position, whereas he's facing and already changing direction to make a break on that corner. So he makes the right read. Cooper was just trying to chuck him, right, and get to his flat. I think he could get more depth here because there is nobody threatening him down here, right? So he could have drifted back a little bit more because there's nobody threatening, and that would have helped Nixon in this pinch. But it is a good ball, good timing, and an easy touchdown for the Cardinals. All right, here we are right before the half, and they're playing 3 deep man. They've got 3 deep safeties, but they've got essentially man coverage underneath. And this is just a perfect concept. All right, some sort of spear concept. After a motion, you've got 2 deep crossers, and that's just going to open up one of these guys in man coverage, right? So you've got the under that ends up getting clear. Doubs makes the catch, gets down, get a timeout, and then you get a nice field goal attempt here. Franchise record, 61 yards by a substitute teacher. So that was game-changing in terms of the momentum. Getting that before half, right, really kept the Packers in this game. All right, I think this play, the Cardinals got away with one. I think this was a false start, but instead, I'm going to try to, yep, there we go. You can see that tackle has already moved. The ball has not been snapped, but it doesn't get called. And instead of it being a full start, you've got a one-on-one shot. You've got Evan Williams one-on-one with Marvin Harrison Jr. at the bottom of the screen. And that's just going to be a nice play, right? Which ends up being defensive pass interference. But if the refs would have called it properly, that is -5 yards. No defensive pass interference. And that puts the Packers in a much better situation. So this is on a 3rd down. Would have ended up being a 3rd and 10 rather than an automatic 1st down at the 48-yard line. And we've got it from the end zone angle. A little bit tough to tell from this angle. It is kind of bang, bang. But from the wide angle, it is pretty clear that he does jump a little bit early. And luckily, that doesn't hurt the Packers because you have Rashawn Gary making a play here, forcing the fumble, and changing the game. Finally, a takeaway, right? Only the Jets are worse than the Packers in terms of takeaways. So that's really not a good thing. But here you get Gary making a very nice strip and changing the momentum for the Packers. This is a concept that I would like the Packers to use a little bit more. Here you've got a mesh. I'll first just want to pay attention to Jenkins. Jenkins is going to snap the ball early. Nobody's ready. Not even Jordan Love, right? Here comes the snap. Jordan Love is still in position. Jenkins is the only one moving. And then everyone realized, oh, wait, ball went. And Packers are able to get a big gain for a 1st down. But this mesh concept with Golden is going to be dangerous, right? If they're playing in zone, he's got the speed to get to the empty spots. And you've just got him running the underneath. The over is going to be run by Kraft. And he's going to do a little bluff step on Melton, which is going to create a little bit more separation. You can see Melton has to slow down. He's going to avoid that contact, right? And that's going to create just enough separation to get Golden out in front for an easy 1st down. So I would like to see the Packers use more mesh, especially with some of the speed that they have at receiver with Golden and when Watson comes back as well. And I know there's not a big focus on the run game because there wasn't much going for both teams, but we're just really lucky to have Josh Jacobs. This is really good vision and a good angle to the pylon. So he sees things break down in front of him, and he's just going to jump outside and beat all the defenders to the end zone. So really nice job by Jacobs there. So here we'll just focus on Walker. And I know I said it earlier, probably don't need to show this play again, but it's just another blitz where Quay Walker gets one-on-one with a running back, and he's just too strong, right? He's a crazy athlete. He gets downhill fast, right? He's relentless. He's pushing this running back. You got Gary collapsing from the edge. That Brissett has to step up, but Quay Walker is going to get his arms on him and bring him down for another half sack there. Then you get into your 3rd and 15, 3rd and 16 situation, you're just going to do your straight cover 3, right? You're going to have a buzz, and Hobbs is going to press here, but by pressing, he's still responsible for that deep third. He's going to get into a worse position guarding this fade, and this is just an alert call by Brissett. He's going to take that one-on-one matchup, right? Brissett does a good job here of keeping his eyes to the right, right? So he's looking over here. He's trying to keep McKinney on this side of the field because he knows he's going to take that alert shot. He sees the press. He wants to take that fade against it, and keeps his eyes there just enough so McKinney can't get across and make a play, and Hobbs just gets beat one-on-one. All right, next play is going to be on Edgerrin Cooper. He's going to be the one who gives up a touchdown here to McBride, who just gets wide open underneath. And that's to do with the play design here, right? So they're going to motion over into a bunch. So that's going to change the call that they're going to have. So Quay Walker has to get here and take the first inside, right? They're going to press the point man, and then Hobbs is going to take that first outside. So you essentially have this little box with 4 defenders, right? And with that, that is then supposed to move Edgerrin Cooper into a man situation with the tight end on the nub. And his eyes get caught in the backfield. He's watching the quarterback, doesn't pay attention to McBride coming across the middle of the field. And if you've got all these clear outs, right, you got these routes getting vertical, that's going to be clear underneath for that shallow cross. And if that backer doesn't keep up with McBride, it's going to be an easy completion for a touchdown. And we see that here. Here we've got a screen to Kraft. So again, he's going to chip. He's going to act as if he's going to chip and then release. And that's exactly what he does. But I prefer these designed screens over the half screen, half concept that goes out, because you at least have multiple blockers, right? So you've got Tom downfield taking that first defender, and then you have 2 more blockers coming out in front to make a play. And you get a ton of rack here by Kraft, right? I much prefer screens when it's fully committed to the screen. Everyone knows that they're doing it, rather than that half escort screen and 3-man concept downfield where they can have 4 or 5 defenders on 3 receivers. So here you get that run after catch, puts the Packers in a much better situation. Here, this play, we're obviously going to focus on Love. The protection, for the most part, I haven't really talked about it, but the pass pro for most of the game was quite solid. Here you let a guy win inside, and Love does a good job of escaping, right? Second time on this drive, I didn't show the one where he got hit, but he was just a couple plays before. All right, he's going to slide down and get a nice first down. And guess what? We got another screen. This one doesn't work because Wilson slips. But if Wilson doesn't slip, if he maintains his balance, we've got this block taken care of. We've got a block down here that's going to be taken care of. And then you're going to have Morgan, who's getting downfield to take care of one. And then Walker, who's going to be downfield taking another one. So if this ends up working, it's going to be an explosive play. However, Wilson loses his footing, not able to do anything, and we are lucky that we get that roughing the passer call anyways. So on a 2nd and long, see, quite a long distance to the sticks, we get that automatic first down, half the distance to the goal. And we get a nice touchdown to Kraft, very similar to earlier this year where he chips, releases into the flat, and he's just going to beat the edge here to the end zone. Got this little counter motion. Got the play fake. Notice the backers both flowing. Right, Banks just gets beat on this block, but both backers are stepping up trying to stop Jacobs. And then you've got number 10 who's got to try to peel and stay with the tight end. But he's not able to do so. Kraft able to get out in front for a touchdown. One small thing that the Cardinals did throughout the game was just getting the snap off early. They got to the line, they got set, everyone's ready to go. But take a look at the Packers, right? You've got some guys who are not in their stance yet on the front line, and the ball is going to get snapped, right? So here we are, boom. two guys not in their stance, ball's getting snapped. All right, so you're not going to get off the ball very quick. In order to diagnose who you're meant to cover, here they've got a blitz on, and then you've got man coverage, where he's going to be responsible for the running back, and he's going quick to the flat. There's no way that you can ask Edrin Cooper to make this cover, right? And you've got a mesh that's coming across. All right, so you've got a spot that sits down and a mesh. So you've got Cooper who's got to fight through traffic to get to this flat on the opposite side. That is just not a good situation for the Packers. But then the next two plays, you make up for it. All right, we got Parsons, who is almost going to get a sack here, gets inside, forces the pressure, forces the throwaway. So that was the second down play. And we'll just watch it from the end zone, sped up. All right, gets inside, gets his hands on the quarterback. Could have been a sack. Brissett able to escape and just get the ball out. And then the next down, we'll obviously highlight him. We'll circle him just for you guys to make it a little bit easier to see. But again, 1-on-1 with Williams, which I don't know why they didn't start chipping him earlier. We saw it a little bit later that they start chipping. But he's able to make a nice play here on third down and force a Cardinals field goal instead of them getting into the end zone. Packers got very lucky on this play. It was a bad throw, but we're going to pay attention to Hobbs at the bottom of the screen. I'm not sure what he is doing. He is just covering grass at the moment because you've got a peel that is on here, so he doesn't need to worry about the flat, and there is only one offensive player in his vicinity. Right, you've got the deep threat, so I can understand why McKinney is a little bit too deep in this situation because he's got to respect Marvin Harrison. But Hobbs keeps moving towards the sideline when there's already Gary here in the flat. Right, I don't think Brissett is going to make that throw, and that's got to be a heck of a catch for McBride. So if Hobbs just moves closer to this defender, right, I know you've got to respect a corner or a deep out, which happened a little bit earlier in the game, but Harrison is just going to be sitting in the soft spot of the zone, and Brissett is just not able to get that throw there. All right, so I'm not too sure what his responsibility is in that situation. All right, it looks like some form of cover two, right, where they're responsible for the sticks, and you got two high safeties, right? But I think he can probably sit a little bit more inside there. But I think he's too worried about playing the flat and that deep corner that he just doesn't pay attention to the man. He's got eyes to the quarterback, not aware of where the receiver is, and that receiver is just going to find that soft pocket. Here's another third down call that I'm not really happy. Obviously, we know that it's 3rd and 1. Hey, we're going to get this tush push. You can see the tight formation, but they're also going to be running outside here to the boundary. I know it's not a big issue, right? They're on the hash here. They're going to be running to the short side of the field. It's not like the college game where you're going to be, much shorter, right? So they're still going to do a pitch to the short side. But if we just cut down the middle, how many defenders? You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of those defenders on that short side of the field. Things are going to get clogged up if you do an outside pitch, right? So if they would have flipped this, I think it's a little bit more of an advantage for the Packers. You get your block here. You're going to have a one-on-one here. He's going to reach and take here. And then you're going to take the next defender. And then it's just Jacobs one-on-one with a safety, right? But you're going to be running towards their strong side of the formation. They're just going to outnumber you and flow downhill and get a stop. All right, so you end up going 4th down and having to take this ballsy call when you don't necessarily need to do that. And then, of course, talked about the ballsy call. I was too unsure about it. I wasn't sure how that would work out. But one small thing, obviously, they're going to go into a bunch here, and that's going to change the rules of what they're going to do, right? So usually you're going to press the point man, and then you're going to have first outside, first inside, right? Not too sure what their technique would be here, but you can see they push out, and it's going to end up being straight man, right? He's going to be man here. He's going to be man on the number 2, and then the safety is going to be man on the number 3. So that's the advantage that he's going to look at. Love is going to look for this number 3. Hey, we got a deep corner. If Kraft runs this properly, that's going to be an easy first down, right? So you got him making that chuck contact. Kraft is strong enough to put that shoulder into him and break outside for easy leverage and an easy first down. So that little shift out of bunch changes the call, changes the coverage, and the Packers were able to take advantage of that for a first down. So a big call there by the Packers and a good read by Jordan Love to get that first down. And then the next couple plays, we're just going to focus on Jacobs. Again, I mentioned it earlier, not much in the run game, but here it's just going to be his vision, right? And him getting tackled short of the first down here is actually going to be helpful for the Packers, right? In a position to tie it, keeps the clock running, but this vision to get across, right, sees everything is blocked up. He sees the backside is blocked, and then that cut, right? So really nice job there. Then we got the little orbit motion, and Jacobs again with that vision setting up this block, right? He's showing as if he's going to go inside, right? But he's going to make this block easier by ended up going outside instead of getting a holding call. And he's just going to slither inside to get very, very close to the end zone. But again, gets the first down, is going to force them to start using their timeouts, is going to help the Packers out. And then we've got the end zone angle as well. All right, Banks losing that rep, I would say. Loses that rep. Jenkins doesn't help him push that much because he's worried about comboing up to the second level. And this is just Jacobs saving the offensive line here with that poor blocking. And then we get an easy touchdown, walking in. Morgan dumping the defensive lineman. All right, just getting his arms around the back. Oop. Tripped. And then in for the end zone. Nice score by the Packers to go up here at the end of the game. Really nice few plays there by Josh Jacobs, willing the Packers to victory. And then I've only got one play left, and this is just to focus on Brooks. He's really good as a pass rusher. So if we know it's a pass, he's going to do quite well. And he just makes a really nice move here, gets through, going to force pressure, he gets held. So the final drive is going to be pushed back already with the hold. And that'll be it for this video. Unfortunately, due to the cyber attacks on Amazon Web Services, not all the plays were available. So this is all I have up to the last part of the game. I wanted to take a look at the holding, Micah Parsons and his last sack. Obviously the Hail Mary at the end, but unable to do that due to cyber attacks. Gotta love it. But that's going to do it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.